Live from the CBS Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, this is CBS2 News at 5 p.m.
A high-end heist targeting handbags. A group of thieves poured into a store, catching employees off guard. You know, you've seen these thieves swarm Apple stores where they grab all the loot they can carry.
Yeah, and now a group of women is snatching up pricey purses. CBS2 Orange County reporter Michelle Gili is live in Costa Mesa with video of the thieves in action. Michelle?
The bags inside of this tiny store in this marketplace here behind me are Chanel, Hermes, Gucci, and Louis Vuitton. Now, they are pre-owned, but they're still very pricey, some costing over $1,000 a piece. The bandits are thieves who were in and out in a flash.
I think that's kind of scary.
Shoppers at Mitsua Marketplace in Costa Mesa are reacting to a brazen heist of high-end purses. You're looking at multiple angles of security video that was shot Sunday as 4 women bolted into the treasure store and within seconds stole hundreds of dollars worth of merchandise.
It's kind of weird to think that somebody would just go in there just to steal, handbags. I mean, maybe they're trying to get something for the holiday season, or they're counting on other people to buy them. I don't know.
Police say this group of bandits was seen earlier in the evening around 5 p.m. scoping out the place. They came back a few hours later, according to officers, and made their move. One of the thieves managed to get 3 handbags before she ran away. The clerk tried to stop them, but couldn't. At one point in the video, the employee appears to be hanging on to one of the suspects as she slips from his grasp. Authorities tell me the suspects had pepper spray. They blasted the clerk and then jumped in a white getaway car. It is a small 4-door white compact. These women still on the loose. They're described as being in their late 20s. That's the latest live in Costa Mesa. I'm Michelle Gili. Back to you.
Those purses are expensive. All right, Michelle, thank you. Developing news happening in LA County where a SWAT standoff with a burglary suspect lasted nearly 12 hours. And this little guy was the key to ending it.
CBS 2's Dave Lopez live at the In-N-Out Burger in Temple City where Deke, the dog, caught the criminal. Dave?
Well, Deke was the hero. He's a little dog. Maybe that's why they don't call him Duke, because he's not big enough to be called a Duke. But behind me is the In-N-Out Burger place that was the subject of all this. It is still closed. I asked management when they're going to reopen. They wouldn't tell me when. But it was quite an ordeal. Someone comes in, trips the alarm, and then they couldn't find him. And in came Deke.
It started just before 3 in the morning. Detectives say a man, unarmed, broke into this In-N-Out Burger stand on Lower Azusa in the city of Temple City. And for 12 hours, they couldn't find him.
We knew the guy was in there.
And they looked, and they looked. SWAT team, gas, dogs, big scent dogs. And then this was a job for Deke. That's Deke, the small dog, the only dog that could fit into the crawl space where he eventually found the suspect, hiding.
How many times have you had to use a dog that size?
Well, I've been deployed on nothing like this, so for a suspect at this time, he's a search and rescue dog.
Never used like this. The first time for Deke, and he came through with flying colors. Normally a search and rescue dog. Detectives said if the suspect is hiding in that crawl space, which is just below the In-N-Out Burger sign, the only way to get him would be with a small dog. That's why Deke was brought in. And what did Deke do when he spotted the man?
Did the dog bite him?
No, it just what a dog does. When it finds somebody, it'll sit down and start barking. So we pull the dog out, and a deputy goes in there, and then we made contact with him, and then the guy peacefully surrendered.
According to some business owners, the suspect is a homeless man who is known to frequent the area and cause some problems. But detectives would not confirm that, saying only that it was a man who was small enough to fit in a crawl space, ignored all of the requests to surrender, would not respond at all. The gas didn't affect him, and then Deke came in and found him.
It's a little dark, but that area that awning right there, right below the In-N-Out Burger sign, is not lit up. That is where the man was hiding, in that tiny little crawl space. And so the detectives were able to get that confirmed, and they realized that the dogs they had on right now were too big. So in came Deke, his small size, and he did the job. Reporting live from Temple City, I'm Dave Lopez, CBS 2 News.
Right on. Way to go, Deke. Thanks, Dave. Some breaking news to tell you about. A police officer involved in a crash in Huntington Beach. Investigators say the driver of a minivan pulled out in front of the officer at Hale and Algonquin Streets. The officer was taken to a hospital. So were an adult and a child in the minivan. We're told none of their injuries is life-threatening. A DUI suspect rolled his Jeep into a ditch during a wild pursuit. This happened in Riverside. During the chase, he was so desperate to get away, he rammed the front end of a patrol car, nearly running over the officers, and that's when the shooting started.
The driver of that Jeep put the vehicle in reverse and aggressively began backing at our officers who were standing outside of the vehicle. One of the officers went inside of the vehicle. The other began backpedaling and, fearing for his safety, fired several rounds at the driver.
Those shots missed 25-year-old Jason Knapp. After flipping his Jeep, he tried to run away but was caught. Police say Knapp has had 2 prior DUI arrests. And now the Rancho Cucamonga man faces a 3rd DUI plus charges of evading an officer and assault.
All right, a warning tonight about the new danger you have to worry about while you're on the road during the holidays. CBS 2's Randy Page is live. He's in downtown L.A. to explain it to us. Randy.
Jeff, you know we hear this every year, the same message, but this time it includes this.
If you use cannabis, do not drive.
An additional holiday warning this year, now that recreational marijuana is legal in California. LA County District Attorney Jackie Lacey says the typical holiday message, don't drink and drive, is now in need of an update.
Today's message is do not get behind the wheel of the vehicle if you've been drinking or using drugs, whether they're legal or illegal.
Law enforcement leaders are saying they're concerned about the impact legalization of cannabis will likely have on the number of people injured or killed in traffic accidents.
There was a study a few years ago by Columbia University that indicated that over the course of the upcoming few years, the number of people who are driving impaired under the influence of cannabis will exceed the number of people who are driving impaired under the influence of alcohol.
That's why there will be law enforcement officers trained in identifying drivers under the influence of cannabis and other drugs who will be assigned to checkpoints and patrols. A serious message with a lighthearted moment when LA County's new sheriff, Alex Villanueva, said, all it takes is a couple of drinks or a couple of hits of pot to put you over the limit for safe driving, or to put it another way,
you just got to be responsible and recognize that if you feel happy and good, that means you're not ready to drive.
Well, no.
Simple.
Let's be clear. Yeah, if you feel happy and good, it's actually okay as long as it's not because you've used marijuana or drugs. All right.
So it's okay to feel happy and good, but just remember, don't drink or do drugs and drive. Jeff, Sharon, back to you.
All right, Randy, thank you. Tonight, arson investigators are trying to figure out if a strip mall fire in Sylmar was an accident or possibly intentionally set.
3 businesses were destroyed overnight, one of them a medical marijuana dispensary. Firefighters were able to save the other businesses, which were a motel and a home, from the fire.
Some breaking news at the U.S. border near Tijuana, where border agents arrested 32 demonstrators. Those demonstrators were organized by a Quaker organization. They're calling for an end to the detentions and deportations of immigrants seeking asylum.
And newly released video from Tijuana shows Central American migrants crawling under the border fence last week. Border Patrol agents did catch some of them, and they were taken to a detention center.
The number of migrant families captured at the U.S.-Mexico border hit a record high for the 4th straight month. The Trump administration says more than 25,000 families were detained in November for illegally crossing over from Mexico. Families made up nearly half of all apprehensions at the border last month.
President Trump is defending himself against allegations he directed the making of illegal payments during the 2016 presidential campaign.
CBS 2 political reporter Dave Bryan is here with a look at the evidence and the president's response to it today.
That's right. And Democrats also responding. They're focusing in on the allegations here. This all relates to the president's former fixer, Michael Cohen, and to payoffs Cohen made to 2 women, including porn star Stormy Daniels, who alleged they had affairs with a then citizen Trump. Court filings by Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller's team and by federal prosecutors in New York say those payments were made to influence the 2016 presidential election. The fallout continues after federal prosecutors in New York filed court documents Friday alleging, quote, individual one, believed to be President Trump, directed payments to two women during the 2016 presidential campaign. The president tweeted this morning that the payments, which he first denied any knowledge of, were a, quote, simple private transaction, and it, quote, was done correctly by a lawyer. Mr. Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, admitted he was the liaison for those payments. Last week's court filings also show Cohen admitted that he had contact with Russian officials during the presidential campaign to talk about building a Trump Tower in Moscow.
Some of the things that have come out over the last couple of weeks, particularly with regards to Mr. Cohen, have led the committee to go back and interview witnesses or to attempt to interview additional witnesses again.
Senator Marco Rubio sits on the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is still investigating Russian collusion during the 2016 election. Burbank Congressman Adam Schiff, who will likely chair the House Intelligence Committee next year, says the president could be in serious legal jeopardy.
There's a very real prospect that on the day Donald Trump leaves office, the Justice Department may indict him, that he may be the first president in quite some time to face the real prospect of jail time.
Now, President Trump continues to deny any wrongdoing on his part, and he continues to repeat the no collusion line he's used for several years now. It's unclear when the Mueller investigation, which President Trump calls a witch hunt, will wrap up. Sharon, back to you.
All right, Dave. Meantime, more news from the White House, where President Trump is now on the hunt for his third chief of staff in less than 2 years. He confirmed this weekend that John Kelly, well, he's leaving the job. Vice President Pence's chief of staff, Nick Ayers, was rumored to be the front runner, but he took himself out of the running just yesterday. Still on the list, though, North Carolina Congressman Mark Meadows, OMB Director Mick Mulvaney, and Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker.
Stranded at sea.
The Coast Guard pulls off a daring rescue of an elderly Southern California sailor.
Somehow he survived a California wildfire. I know, then waited in the rubble for 30 days for his owner to come home.
More snow in one night than they usually get in a year. We're going to have the latest on a deadly winter storm.
Hey everybody, I'm Garth Kemp out towards the pier. Big surf coming our way, plus some nice December weather. Your forecast on the way.